She's actually from London, Ontario, and she just happens to be our support leader for London. So I'm really excited for Katy to share her story with all of you, and let's give her a warm round of applause. Thank you, Sarah, and I want to thank you for inviting me to come speak here today and for setting up this fantastic forum for learning. I've already learned a lot just from Dr. Mark, so thank you. So I think I can speak for just about everybody here who has a BFRB that we all have carried, at least at some point, a lot of shame. Now, I have given over 20 years of my life and my hair to trichotillomania. And what I want to share with you a little bit this afternoon is how I dealt with that shame and how it was able to bring me to the point where I could make peace with my BFRB. Now, shortly after I turned 27, this was late 2010, I suffered the second major depressive episode of my life, and I sought treatment for that. And at the same time, I was treated for generalized anxiety disorder. But I still carried so much shame, I never told my psychiatrist that I pulled out my own hair. Now, in early 2011, I had to take a business trip to the United States. And at that point in my life, the bald spot on the crown of my head was the size of a sandwich plate. And I had no eyelashes along my top eyelids. Now, I'm not Canadian or American, so whenever I cross the border, I get fingerprinted, photographed, and interrogated. It's a pretty stressful experience. And on this particular day, we'd had to leave really early in the morning, so I hadn't been able to do my usual wizardry in hiding my bald spot, so I was wearing a hat. And I'm going through customs, and I get a very stern instruction from the border agent. He says, "Ma'am, you need to remove your hat. You can't wear it in the photo." Well, I panicked. But I didn't have a choice. I needed to take this business trip. So here I was, hands shaking as I removed my hat, exposing my half-bald scalp to anybody and everybody crossing the border that day, including my two colleagues, who I barely knew, and who certainly did not know that I pulled out my own hair. So after I get through that whole ordeal, I'm walking back to the car with my colleagues so we can continue with our journey. And one of them says to me, "Why don't you have any hair?" To which I said, "I'd rather not talk about it." Those words felt awful coming out of my mouth. I'm a very open individual. I'm sure you've probably figured that out about me in this couple minutes that we've spent together. But I've been openly gay since I was 13 years old. I'm not ashamed about that. I'm really not ashamed about anything. And I started to really question why I was letting trichotillomania have that hold over my life. And so when I got back home from that business trip, my next appointment with my psychiatrist, I came out again, this time as a hair puller. And after that, I got help. Now, help for me came in the form of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. So at a very high level, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but CBT basically works where it teaches you how to identify your triggers and how to avoid or manage them. Now, unfortunately for me, I'm not able to avoid my triggers. So I learned a few different management techniques along the lines of self-care, meditating, practicing deep breathing techniques in high-stress, high-anxiety situations like talking on stage in front of 50 strangers. And also some very healthy replacement behaviors. So I rediscovered my passion for knitting, and because unfortunately you can't knit everywhere, according to my psychiatrist, he encouraged me to learn a couple other replacement behaviors as well. And I found that chipping clear nail polish on my fingernails was a pretty decent alternative. And so what I discovered as I was going through CBT was that I started to feel less and less shame about what I was doing. And here's what happened with the less shame that I felt. I started posting pictures to Facebook of my bald spot and eventually my regrowth. I went to see a professional hairstylist for the first time in well over a decade. I started public speaking about trichotillomania. I started my own business serving stressed out entrepreneurs, and I launched a support group for CBSN in London, Ontario. All of those things took immense amounts of courage, and I could have never done any of those things if I was still living in shame of my BFRB. So does anyone here kind of understand physics a little bit? I'm awful at science. My dad's a physicist, so I need to at least pretend I've absorbed some of his knowledge over the years. But this is what I think about shame. Shame is an emotional interpretation, if you will, of our BFRB. And I believe that, like energy, our emotional interpretations of our BFRB can't be created or destroyed. Something has to happen so they can convert into a different emotional interpretation. And I feel that the only way we're ever going to make peace with our BFRB is if we convert that emotion of shame into courage. And so I want to share something really important with you today. I haven't told my family or my friends this, but right now, today, October 25th, 2014, I am celebrating 1,200 days pole-free. Everything about this here except the color is real. So I just want you to know, I understand that for a lot of you today, it took a lot of courage to come here. You've probably been carrying a lot of shame about your BFRB over the years. And I just want you to know, if this is the only thing that you take away from me today, that shame you feel is ever so slowly starting to morph into courage. And so today, I would encourage you, if there's a treatment option out here you haven't heard of, or a resource that you want to look more into, or if a speaker here today resonates with you, reach out. Because I am here to tell you, there is absolutely no shame in asking for help. There is only courage. Thank you.